Hey guys, hope you're all doing well. I've got to open this up with a little bit of a story time, because I wasn't initially planning on doing a video on this movie.
Shut the fuck up!
Not because I didn't like it, I really did like it. I didn't think I'd have time to sit down and do a video on this. Spoiler alert, this movie rules, and you should absolutely go and watch it.
Yeah!
So then, let's cut to Thursday the 8th of May, and I'm ready to go on the sesh for my good friend's birthday, but my mental was not doing too good. Come home and watched Buffy Season 5, Episode 19, The Body.
Not supposed to move the body!
No.
Then proceeded to bawl my fucking eyes out over the following few episodes.
I mean, I knew her, and then there's just a body. And I don't understand why she just can't get back in it and not be dead.
By the end of my little crybaby sesh, I realised I really wanted to see this damn movie again.
Yes!
After multiple MCU projects that just didn't have the feel or love of the earlier films, Thunderbolts didn't even knock the door, it just ripped it straight off its hinges and forced a bottle of vodka down your throat in your very own shame room, where you can look in the mirror and acknowledge how much of a disappointment that you are.
God, thank you.
From the get-go, Yelena stands on the edge of a building, prepared to take that leap, but instead of plummeting to the ground, she throws herself into work and attempts to fulfill herself and feel worthy and important, despite the fact that she kind of hates the actions that she's actually doing. This is her endless cycle of self-harm, and that's basically where every member of the team is at the start of this film, except for Bucky.
We can be the ones that are coming.
From that first fight sequence to the one in the bunker, the actual harsh nature of the action really hits for the first time in an MCU movie for a long time. You really feel the violence, and which in turn makes all of these characters' pain work so much more because it is directly linked to their actions of violence. It's what they throw themselves into, their cope, almost in opposition to Bucky at this point in time, who is trying to force change through Parliament. So the moment he finally gives up on that dream, we know that it's not truly him and that he's not making the change that he wants to the world and to himself. And so when he shows up on his bike, you feel it because of the source it's executed with, and yes, he's indulging back in his violence, but that works because he's making necessary change for himself to be what he wants to be, what he needs to be, rather than forced into something that he isn't. God, this movie did that whole idea better than Born Again. That's what makes him the perfect symbol to lead the Thunderbolts, a group of misfits who are trying to find their place, and thanks to the brilliant characterization and arcs across the film, you feel every second of their progression and their emotion just as much as you feel the bullet that was wedged right between Taskmaster's fucking eyes. So kind of along that topic of action, I think it is probably the best combat in an MCU film since The Winter Soldier, and it is nice to be able to say that statement and actually kind of mean it. And this is a film that needed the action to be good because these characters and their inner darkness is so essential to the story. That's what the film is about. If we had had a load of CGI, weightless body doubles and big scale action, we wouldn't have felt it anywhere near as much. And another thing, these guys get knackered, these guys get tired, they pull themselves through, something that is incredible about the Daredevil action sequences. This film goes back to not making action look pleasing, it makes it look violent, and that's refreshing in itself. But then, not only that, we're not just focused on the actual hand-to-hand combat and all the big explosions, but we get to see our heroes saving people. Something that I think in many ways has been lost with the high-concept, bigger budget blockbuster elements of superhero films. Within the action and the world-ending events, we don't have time to see them saving the little guys, but this film makes the time. My god, it is so effective. The final act of this movie takes place in New York and resembles a lot from that first Avengers movie way back when. This artificially created super being is sucking every bit of life and soul out of the world that these characters inhabit, and our heroes are desperately trying to preserve this world. The moment where Red Guardian saves the child and she is immediately killed anyway was a brutally shocking moment and one of true fear. We saw already hand to hand that there's no fight here. Sentry is just levels above. He is a god essentially, and likewise with the Void. This moment created such a hopelessness after that warm feeling we got from seeing Red Guardian do what he has wanted to do all his life, in being a hero and saving lives, a part of a team, and that is ripped away from him, and that's when they kind of decide to run. What can they do here? You know you've got a truly shocking moment when a gut reaction is to laugh out of not knowing how to react. How we proceed in this final act is really interesting because rather than a huge physical city-destroying battle, we spend this final act in their heads, in their shame rooms. It's an incredibly effective resolution. Yelena taking that first step, similarly to how the film opened, not totally confident in the fact that you're going to get back up from this leap. We saw when John touched the void, it left him staring down an elevator shaft, one step away from ending all this pain that he's got. I love that the way through each room often involves mirrors, that self-reflection, that bit of glass that forces you to see everything you don't want to see. The assassin with blood on her hands, the neglectful father, the failed experiments, the alcohol, the fucking chicken costume you remember when you were on meth, confronting your darkest rooms to take a step closer to the way out. Yelena eventually makes it to Bob, who has locked himself away from the abuse he can only see and hear through small cracks in the floor, because seeing it anymore forces that void to swallow him whole. I do wish we'd seen a room with Ghost and the Red Guardian, but you get enough of a picture to still care and imagine what they've gone through. And I think it just leaves space to revisit some of these characters a bit more in depth in the future. And it doesn't really take away from my enjoyment or care for the team, because it just left me thinking, shit, I hope these guys are okay. And it's then we get the origin of Sentry and the void within Bob that had been there all along, with the Sentry program being what promoted it to its most dangerous level. The use of drugs is what causes that takeover. Bob was your perfectly normal guy, grown up in an abusive household and found himself coping through drugs. He was traveling looking for anything he could get his hands on, before Valentina shows up promising him a better life, promising him help to be a better person, a way out of the void that is Bob's mental state. But the reality is that Val, in this superhero world, through focus groups and pure force rather than natural course, is attempting to craft her very own superhero. Whether this is the intent or not, I'm not so sure, but I think this can really stand as a bit of an allegory for the last few years of Marvel movies. Not letting their films and shows grow naturally, but forcing ideas and long-term stories into the characters and the films and the filmmakers. Using feedback from showing to try and correct every tiny thing, going back for week-long reshoots just to fix anything to please the largest of masses, to make their Sentry. But that's when you give way to the void created by Disney's focus groups and convey about nature of their art, the void created by Bob's life and created stronger by Val and her twisted ideology. Finding the origin of the void's strength leads them to the day Bob had the experiments, and the void personified berates Bob, isolating him from everyone else, as Bob turns to violence to actually tackle the void, as all the other characters in this room have done all their lives. The self-torment, the self-harm only strengthens that darkness. The most effective thing at helping Bob out of that void is touch from others. A hug from the family you found. It's only then you, yourself, and those pulled into and affected by your darkness can you escape it. Overall, I think this is a pretty great Sentry adaptation from the comics, even though I don't know loads about the character and I'm keen to kind of read a lot more now. And I get it doesn't do the retcon idea. People were probably keen on that, and Buffy does that incredibly well with Buffy's sister in season 5. If you want a good kind of portrayal of a story arc like that, definitely recommend giving that a watch. But I get why they went purely this way. And I think there are hints to the retcon story arc that does take place in the comics, with how Bob finds his way in other people's memories, the fact that Val is forcing this superhero to kind of make people believe, no, he is the best, he's our Superman, despite the fact that he was, manufactured by focus groups, by committees. As much as Sentry is this idealistic god figure that is all-powerful, due to how that was found through drugs and desperation, Sentry can only come out with the risk of the void close behind, and Bob is stranded in the realm of having to do the hardest thing and just live with them both inside. I needed some of what this film was putting down. Let me just say that. Is it the best MCU film? No. But it's not only a good MCU film, but a good movie. It's a genuinely really good film. For the first time in a while, this franchise has been willing to actually say something. Not having a big, red, angry president destroying Washington for spectacle, as opposed to actually making any commentary at all. Whereas here, they're willing to look at the darkest corners of our minds and ask what happens when we confront that, even more scarily, what happens if we don't. I think it's an incredible concept and presentation of those concepts of Bob's depression and how they manifest in such a dark and harsh way, then the outcome leaving Bob confused, emotionally and physically disorientated after an overwhelming episode. The reveal that these guys become the new Avengers is a great one, allowing Yelena to finally claim power over those ideas that have forced her into her unknown darkness for all of these years. And despite all these dark themes, the film is funny. The character dynamics really shine, as they did with the original Avengers, except all of these guys are much more unhinged. The comedy comes from all their differences, but that's also the same way that they connect. There's a moment where Bucky reveals that Walker had lost his kid with his wife taking them, and he gives a look to Yelena that is one of pain and longing, but also acknowledgement for his mistakes. Wyatt Russell says so much without any words. He says so much more about how that's not the man he wants to be. And Yelena sees through all of these emotions. But equally, these guys will insult each other on the same topics, and it's comedic throughout the entire runtime until Yelena breaks down, lashes out at every member of the team, leaving a more bitter taste this time, as opposed to any audience laughs. Yelena and Bob are ultimately the beating heart of this film, with Yelena trying to find her way out of the darkness and taking that first step, whereas Bob is becoming increasingly more overwhelmed by his darkness. As I mentioned, not everyone gets the most screen time, but I think it worked for this film and this story where they're introducing Sentry. But not only that, they're moving this world forward, they're moving along with the characters in it. They're all taking a step up to better themselves and in turn each other. I did not expect to come out of Thunderbolts caring more about this team and seeing these guys at the forefront of Doomsday as opposed to Captain America, or whoever's actually meant to be in that movie, because I genuinely don't know or care at this point. But the Thunderbolts is a refreshing superhero movie that makes use of its sandbox and shows the soul that connects us with the characters and stories in this world that we haven't had for what feels like too long of a time.